So I know we've got a front view, a plan view, we need a left view now. I'm going to set up my left view, make sure it's on parallel projection. I'm going to create a new layer called left view dims. I'm also going to create one for my plan view. So in my left view, I'm going to uncheck everything except for the left view dims, and I'm going to update this. I'm going to go back to the plan view, and I'm just going to uncheck left view dims, update that, and make sure that everything's unchecked except visible layers. And I'll repeat that just quickly for this asymmetric view. So I'm going to turn off everything and then update that with just the visible layers updated. I'm also going to create a close-up view on one of these corners so I can put some dimensions on the splines. I'm just going to zoom right in, add a new scene. I'll call this one corner detail, and again add a new layer for this. Now there is a little bit of setting up to get these layers and scenes at the start, but once it starts to get complicated, you'll be really grateful that these layers are here to control visibility. I'm also going to want to set up a scene which shows the detail of the mortise and tenon joint as well as the screw holes we've put in here. Now it's going to be a bit hard to show the screw holes. To show the tenon, we could just hide this leg geometry in a view and we can dimension up from there. But to show the screw holes it's going to be a bit difficult. So I'm going to use what's called a section plane to actually cut a section in the model. I'm going to go up to Tools, click on Section Plane. Now I want to align this so it's parallel to the face of this rail, and just click to place it. So you can see that draws a plane in, and it actually cuts off everything to the right of that plane. Now if I click on the plane, I can use the Move tool to move it around, cut sections through different parts of the model. So I'm going to set up a front view, a back view for this one. Make sure it's set to parallel projection. I'm going to zoom in a bit. Oops. And I'm going to create a new scene and call this one section through rail. And again, I'm going to create a new layer for this one. So now we can actually put dimensions and text on this section. Now I'm actually going to put this section plane to be on the section through rail layer. So that way I can turn it off in the other views and it's not cutting my model. With all of these scenes and layers set up, it's time to start putting on our dimensions and our text into each of our scenes. Let's start by adding some dimensions to our plan view scene. So I'm going to double click on plan view, and as we go along I'm going to just double check that our layer visibility is correct. So for plan view I just want layer 0 and plan view dims checked, so that's good. Now I'm going to click on this circle to the left here, and that makes the plan view dims layer the current active layer. So that means anything I draw from now until I change the current active layer will go onto plan view dims. So I'm going to go and draw some dimensions on this view. Let's give it some overall dimensions. Now when I select one of those dimensions I've just drawn, you can see the active layer is plan view dims. Now I'm just going to put a few more critical dimensions on this view. So I want to put a dimension for the thickness of those legs and the width of those slats. Now I'm pretty happy with what we've shown in this view, so I'm going to switch to the front view and just double check that the front view dims and layer 0 are the only visible layers. Now I'm going to set front view dims to be my new active layer, and I'll put a few more dimensions on this view as well. So I want a dimension from the bottom of the leg to the bottom of this rail. And I want to dimension the overall length of that rail. We'll move on to the left view now, and as you can see the layers aren't set up correctly, so I'll quickly set those up correctly, update that scene, and we're good to start dimensioning on this one. So I'll put a few dimensions on the legs. I'll shift the location of these dimensions text, these may clash. And I'm actually going to add a bit of text to this view as well. So to add text, I'm going to go up to Tools, click on Text, and just click anywhere on the scene to place the text. So I'm just going to call this, we'll put into here, radius edge. Click again, and then go back to Select Tool, and I want to move this just under that radius edge. Now that's actually a little bit vague, so I'm going to select that text and delete it. I'm going to go back up to Tools, go Text, and this time I'm going to start by clicking on that component and then moving my mouse out, and you can see it actually gives me an arrow or a leader. I'll click again to place the text, and now I'm going to type in radius edge. Click again, and that's a bit clearer as to what it's pointing to. I'm going to add some more text to denote mitered corners. Click again, and I think that should do us for this view. Actually no, we'll dimension up the height in this view as well. And I'll just quickly dimension the inside height as well. Let's move on to the corner detail scene. I'm going to double click on that. Again, just check my layers are set up correctly, update if I need to. And for this one I'm going to add a couple of dimensions and some text for those splines. So just a couple of set out dimensions for these splines. And I've forgotten to set my active layer, so I'm just going to do that quickly. Corner detail dims, and I'm going to hide these members in the background because they're obscuring the text a bit. So I'm going to select them all, go hide, do the same as the rest of the model, and I'm just going to update that view with hidden geometry. Move these dimensions out to make them a bit more visible. A few more dimensions on there. And finally just some text. Splines in mitered corner. If I double click on that text, I can edit again, and I'm going to put a carriage return in there. Just move it to the scene a bit more, and that should do us for this detail. Now there's one last scene to do, which is a section through the rails. So similar thing, we're going to set our current layer and just check the layer visibility, update, and we can start dimensioning. So I think for this view I'm actually going to zoom right in. I'm going to update it again. Now I've just got one last scene to do, and I don't know about you, but the animations between scenes is kind of annoying. So I'm going to go up to View, Animation, click on Settings, and then untick Enable Scene Animations. So now it just skips straight to the scenes rather than zooming around all over the place. So this section through the rail is the last one we've got to do, so I'm going to just make sure my active layer is right and the layer views are correct. And then I'm going to start doing my dimensions for the mortise and tenon here. And I'm going to add some text notes for the screws. Okay, so now let's add some dimensions to these screw holes. Now you might find it's a little bit difficult to snap to the center points of these screw holes in this section view. So I'm just going to orbit my view around to make it a bit easier to see these center points. And then when I'm placing my dimension, I want to orbit back closer to my final view so I get that dimension in the right plane. Let's do that again for the next one. Orbit it back around and click. Now that text is in a very bad position, so I'm actually going to move that text. Now you might find it difficult to select that text with the section pane active. So if I double click on the section pane, it actually deactivates it. So I can select this text and I'll probably just delete that. Double click the section pane again to reactivate it, and then I'll just add my text again, just off to the side. So 2 screws per slat. Now there's plenty more dimensions and notes we could add to this to make it easy to build in real life, but I've shown you the basics of how to do this using the layers and scenes. So you can go through and add any dimensions or text that you feel is necessary or warranted. So I'm just going to leave it at that for now. Now we'll go through to just printing a couple of these scenes off as PDFs. So I'm going to go Window, hide dialogues to get rid of all those dialogues. I'm going to switch back to my isometric view, and I'm going to print out this view as a PDF. So I've got a couple of free PDF printers here, so I'm going to use Bullzip printer. Make sure it's set to color, and I'm just going to check my page size. So I'm going to print this out on an A4, and I want to fit to page and use model extents. You can also batch print all of the scenes in a model, but I'm just going to print one for now. So if I hit OK, Bullzip should process this through as a PDF. It'll let me save it. And when that's done, it should open up the PDF for me. So there you have it. You can do that for each of your scenes. You can have a play around with scaling in your printer settings or different page sizes. But that should give you a pretty good basis of how to create a simple project in SketchUp. So I hope you've enjoyed this and found it useful. Drop by the website at www.craftycad.com or check me out on Facebook or on YouTube and leave some comments. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.